Are you a sex worker looking to build a new website or a website redesign? Then you'll want to consider Fox Digital. They did a fantastic job designing my website, Stripped by Sia. If you want your website done, mention that you're a listener of the show at foxdigital.design for 20% off. Tell them I sent ya. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I am your host, Steph Sia, aka Kimchi, on stage. If you are listening, I won't be on stage for another month. I'm taking another little break. Come see me at Shaker's Show Lounge or the Penthouse in Vancouver, Canada. That is where I usually am, or just follow me on all the socials so you can kind of know where I am if you want to chat about the show, buy dance for me, etc., etc. Beyond that, I am a digital content creator. I was also a sugar baby for a number of years, and now I just do the show. I've been doing this show for the past few years, talking about sex work in order to try to destigmatize our industry, because as you may know, it is very misinformed a lot. Oftentimes you don't get to hear the stories of real sex workers. So I try to do my best to kind of dispel all the myths, all the assumptions, all the stereotypes by bringing different people on every single week that are part of the adult industry, whether you're a performer, you're a talent, you're behind the scenes in porn, or in today's case, you're a legal attorney specializing in the adult industry, which I'm super excited to talk about. I will be announcing today's guest in just a few minutes here, but we got to get through all the things. So if you want to fast forward 5 minutes, that's totally fine. I just want to say hello and thank you to all the Patreon subscribers that have subscribed recently. People that are on the top tier, just want to say hello, give you a personalized shout out here on the show. We've got Snoo from Germany. We've got Arup Sarkar here from British Columbia, as well as Jay Sunsern. Thank you so much for always supporting since day one, as well as Justin Erickson from Vancouver, Washington. We also have Ted McGuire. We've got some new people here, Marty Lang. We've got Earl Kwan and Trey Lonti. Thank you so much for subscribing to the show. If you're curious, on Patreon, it's a great way of supporting the show. It really basically helps fund my website and putting all the episodes up on there. And for people to access me a bit more freely in a more chill and casual way, you get to see things behind the scenes, some exclusive video content, which can be fun and spicy, and just kind of getting a sneak peek on new episodes that are coming out, new guests I have lined up and stuff too. So be sure to check it out. It is patreon.com/strippedbysia for as low as $4 a month. In addition to that, also big shout out to my network. It is skyhawkafterdarktv.com. Skyhawk After Dark is a network of adult videocasts, also similar podcasts just like mine. We've got a lot of guests that I've brought on to show that have their own shows that are also on the network. So please go check it out. It is skyhawkafterdarktv.com. And last but not least, the website I was telling you about is Stripped by Sia, and that was made by my friend at Fox Digital. His name is Anthony. He's also sex worker friendly. He's also an ally for us as well. We've done an episode with him not too long ago in this season. So for Stripped by Sia listeners, you get 20% off. So be sure to check him out. Tell him I sent you. It is foxdigital.design and ask for Anthony. Okay, we've got that actually under 4 minutes, which is really nice. I guess I'm doing a better job at not rambling too much. But as mentioned, today is all about the legal world. Sometimes, as you know, when you are an adult in the adult industry, actually, there can be a lot of legal matters that you might not be aware of, or maybe contracts perhaps you might not know or understand what you are signing, what you're getting yourself into. But it is really, really important to have your butt covered, which is why I'm bringing on today Corey Silverstein of Silverstein Legal, who's an attorney based in Michigan here in the USA, and he specializes in the adult industry. So it's really, really niche. It's really cool, very fascinating. Corey is I've seen him basically at all these trade shows. I think we met actually last year, really briefly, at the Why Not reunion, and I missed your presentation at Internext. I also saw you were at XBiz as well. So, and plus, you've had decades and decades of experience in the adult industry. I'm so excited to finally bring you on to the show. Please welcome Corey Silverstein.
I was waiting for the standing ovation, but I don't hear anything. So I guess the live audience doesn't give the standing ovation. So I'm pretending right now that I hear like all these people clapping for me, and that I'm like walking through a curtain like a professional wrestler or something, and like all these people are so excited. So you'll have to indulge my moment while I'm acknowledging the crowd here. So
I'll add that in.
well, it's my pleasure to be here. I can't thank you enough. I've actually been a long time Twitter stalker of yours, and I've followed your postings and such. And I think you are an absolutely amazing contribution to the adult entertainment industry. And hopefully, the adult entertainment industry as a whole values all of the amazing information and resources that you've been able to provide, because it's just absolutely awesome. So it's my pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. And yes, you were requested to be on the show by some people on Twitter. So shout out to those peeps who wanted you on, because obviously, like with adult work, it can be entangled with a lot of legal mess, which is why we wanted to bring you onto the show to kind of get your expertise and get your insight on all of this. But kind of before we get started too, I just want to make sure that I did your intro correctly. How would you describe yourself to the audience, like if you, in your own words and terms?
In my own terms, well, I would describe myself as absolutely amazing. I have amazing brown. Oh wait, I'm sorry. We're talking about my legal qualifications, not my personal. Well, for my legal qualifications, I would indicate that I'm an adult entertainment lawyer or adult industry attorney, whatever acronym you want to do. I've been in the adult entertainment industry now for, God, good 17 years, maybe longer. I don't know. Time kind of moves pretty fast. But I think you're spot on. Adult industry lawyer, adult entertainment lawyer, all those are probably perfect.
Excellent. And Corey, how does one become an adult industry lawyer? That seems very niche. I'm curious to hear about your journey into law and how and why you decide to specialize and go down this particular pathway.
A lot of alcohol. I mean, it was a ton of drinking. And no, all kidding aside, I have a kind of a unique story. It was like many people who actually got their start in adult entertainment work, especially on this side of the camera. Growing up, I was a tech geek. I was always fascinated with the internet, computer technology, and just, I was one of those excited people when I was still browsing the internet with a 14.4 kbs modem. Yes, for those of you that understood what I just said, I said 14 kbs. That was when like we used to be surfing for porn, and you'd get like so excited because it'd be loading like line by line by line. Like, oh my God, here comes the boob, here comes the boob, here comes the boob. Oh my God. So I come from that time of the internet, so a little bit of a different time. But I was a tech dork, like most others, and that actually ended up leading me to Purdue University for my undergraduate studies, where I focused on computer technology while I was there. After undergrad, it was just one of those things where I had been, again, so intrigued by internet technology and online marketplace and so forth, that I ended up doing some homework and researching, getting into the adult entertainment industry. And so I was introduced to one gentleman who actually the first person I met in the industry completely ripped me off.
Oh no.
He ran away with the only $15,000 I was able to scrounge up and sold me absolutely nothing. But
Oh gosh.
during the course of all that misery, I actually met another gentleman who felt bad for the experience I had gone through, and so he actually sold me an affiliate program and 33 pay sites. It was called Sinbucks. Some of you might remember it if you're old enough. So we operated 33 pay sites, and that was my fast education into adult. So while I was in law school, I was actually running these adult entertainment websites, and I was using the money I was making from that to pay for law school. And
Smart.
so the strange transition was that at the end of law school, I had met so many amazing people in the adult entertainment landscape, and I was just so intrigued by the First Amendment, free speech, and advocacy that it all just kind of came together. And the next thing you know, I'm selling the websites and the program I was running, and I started with one adult client in one country, and now we represent. I'm very proud that I have over 300 clients in more than 24 different countries. So it's that was kind of my strange path into the industry.
That is actually a really interesting story too, because I actually didn't know that you had prior experience before you started your law firm, and that's fascinating. It's really cool that you already kind of like dip your feet and had exposure to the adult industry beforehand, because I feel like sometimes if you're kind of an outsider looking in and trying to permeate into the adult community, it can be really hard that way. So it's good that you already had a bit of insight into that as well.
It was a different time. It was definitely, I would call it, scary and lonely times. But ultimately, when you're suddenly running 33 adult pay sites and you have huge name adult entertainment stars that are on your payroll that you have to pay and get them, make sure that the content's being shot. And this was a different time. Remember back then, you weren't, most performers weren't creating their own content. I was in the business of buying content, and so we were having to produce, and we were having to get our websites up and make sure that our customers were happy. And it was just a totally different different experience than it is right now, because obviously so many performers now have the ability to be in business for themselves, which is obviously just an amazing opportunity.
Totally. I mean, going back to those early days when you're running these 33 websites, did you have any idea? I mean, you had the computer science background already to kind of navigate through that, but kind of navigating through adults, did you have any idea at all? Or like, and you mentioned it like it was pretty isolating too. Did that mean it was just because you didn't have the experience, or just like didn't know where to go, or like didn't have the familiarity with the industry at the time?
I was lucky because ultimately I got into I got hooked up with a gentleman who was well known in the industry and had a lot of friends and resources and such. So I had a little bit of a I guess you could say a little bit of a easier start than some would who know nobody. But ultimately, the transition in terms of jumping into an industry that nobody knows who you are, and I mean, look, I I was around at a time when at trade shows they were giving away Ferrari leases to affiliates because it was such a different industry, and it was a different time. So at first it's it can be pretty overwhelming where you're trying to meet the right people and you're trying to get into the right circles who will work with you, and in many ways you're trying to, it's kind of comical, but in many ways you're trying to get into the right crowd, so to speak. Like you want to be with people that share similar values and such, and also are open to taking in someone who's new to the industry, because ultimately back then I was referred to as a newbie. That's what we used to call them. I don't know if everyone uses that word anymore, but I was a newbie, and it takes a while to gain the trust of other people in the industry, get to know people in the industry, and ultimately get into that position where people are comfortable enough with sharing their thoughts and ideas to share with you because they want to help you succeed. And that is kind of the first steps, and things speed up quite a bit after that. But at first it can be an intimidating and lonely process.
Yeah, and a scary process too. I mean, when you
Oh,
started,
for sure.
when you sold, and then you leapt into the legal side of things with adult. Did you find it was a similar experience, or by that time you're like, okay, like I got the lay of the land a little bit, but because it was a different, I guess, a career switch at that point, did you have similar kind of experience in terms of like, okay, this is hard, this is isolating, this is I'm new again, I'm a newbie.
In one sector, yes. In one sector, no. That was in 2006 when I made the transition from being a website operator slash affiliate to being a an attorney in the industry. It was easier for me because, frankly, it was easy for me to use the relationships with people that I had met to, become their attorneys. And almost all of them have still been my clients after 17 years or whatever it's been. On another front, though, some of the other lawyers who were around in the industry at that time in '06, some of them were quite friendly, but there were others that were quite unfriendly and were not very receptive. Part of it, I guess, I could consider a compliment because I was perceived as somewhat of a threat to the established quo. There had been no one who had been a website operator and actually become an attorney before. And then part of it is just, frankly, lawyers can be assholes and dicks, and they
Correct.
they just didn't want me around.
Yeah.
But so it was kind of a mixed bag, but it wasn't nearly as difficult as it was when I first, got my start, just simply being an affiliate and website operator.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely very, very, very different. And I guess like jumping to, yeah, this part of your career where you're, yeah, an attorney where you represent so many people. Let's talk about those people. Who are your clients mainly? And I know you have a long list on your website of who these people might be, but let's go over that. Like, who do you represent?
Well, I'm very proud of the clientele that I've established, and my clientele is very diverse. It spreads from we can talk about starting at individual performers all over the world. When I talk about individual performers, I talk about performers that are potentially still filming conventionally. When I say conventional production, some people don't know what that means because it's kind of a term from the past era of adult, and that's where a performer is simply hired by a producer, does the shoot, and does nothing else, versus nowadays where production is very much self-production, self-content creation, etc. So I have performers like that. I have performers that are campsite performers, clip store creators, dancers, exotic dancers, burlesque dancers, sex workers. Um, the list goes on and on and on. Then from there, I also have the privilege of representing large companies that provide services to the adult industry, such as, to give you some examples, and just so everyone knows, I am a king of secrets and I'm very protective of confidentiality. So the people and companies that I'm about to mention, I'm only mentioning because they're okay with me saying that I represent them.
Smart.
But
Of course
well,
you
there's
do that.
companies like Mojo Host. Mojo Host is the largest web host for adult entertainment in the world.
Mhm.
I've been fortunate to be their lawyer for, God, 15, 17 years now. I can't even remember.
Incredible.
SegPay is the largest payment processor, PSP processor in the adult entertainment space. I happen to represent them. Same thing with Pays; they're another processor. And then you start getting into the large platforms that I represent, and now we're talking about businesses, websites, the CAM platforms, sites like Clips for Sale is a long-term client that I'm very proud of the work we've done with them. I've had the pleasure of working with some of the biggest named, um, you know, adult brands in the world, and fortunately for me, I've got clients in I believe it's over 20. It's 23 or 24 different countries now, which is truly incredible.
That's amazing.
And it's Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We represent CAM platforms and social media platforms. Now we're the whole aspect of social media management is exploded, and so I'm working with a ton of companies in that field, helping them get set up and make sure that they're behaving appropriately. And then at the same time, for my entire career, I've been dedicated to fighting any sort of attacks on free speech. So That includes kind of criminal defense when the government chooses to get aggressive and tries to attack sex workers, whatever in whatever means that is.
Hmm.
Uh, I've represented I've represented individuals and businesses who have been subject to criminal investigations, charges, federal investigations, state investigations, and the list goes on.
Oh my gosh. That's an incredible
Yeah.
portfolio, and you should definitely be proud. Like, huge congratulations. That's amazing. Milestones of success for you. So cool.
Is this where our fake wrestling audience is cheering for us again? Like,
I'm going to
they,
add those sounds in. Maybe I should during the edit.
and I think it would be really cool if like your interviews had entrance music too. Wouldn't that be like real neat if I could like pick a cool song and I come like, you know, jetting into my seat?
Maybe I'll
That'd be
have to
cool.
do that from here on out.
I'd probably pick like Guns N' Roses or something like that, and we'd have to be careful with how much of the clip we use because again, we have to worry
Exactly.
about trade intellectual property enforcement. So
Here we go.
yeah, we want to make sure we're only going fair use. So.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we can that'll be like another like rabbit hole. But I want to talk about why it's important for sex workers and any person who's part of the adult industry to have an attorney. And maybe those answers might be obvious to some, but there's a lot of people that listen to the show that are so far away from this industry as well. So I'd love for you to kind of go into that and elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, your question is phenomenal, and to put it blatantly, there are, and forgive me because there's so many different categories now of sex entertainers. We have sex workers, we have cam performers, cam models, and clip models, and there's so many definitions and titles that so when I use the term sex workers or adult entertainers, I really am referring to all the categories. I'm trying to lump it into one. Otherwise, we'd be sitting here all day and reading off all the different titles.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for anybody who is in the adult entertainment business, they oftentimes they feel the stigma and almost like they're embarrassed because they don't know who to call, they don't know who to go to, because they know that to some degree in their mind they need legal advice, but they're embarrassed because they may not have the resources, or they go to their family friend lawyer and they can't talk to them because they don't want them knowing they're in the adult entertainment industry, or they're afraid to reach out to a lawyer because they're afraid of the continuing mainstream stigma against sex workers, which is a real thing, Steph. I mean, I talk about this all the time, and sex work stigma is real. Anyone who doesn't understand that, I encourage you to take a look and do your own research, but it won't take you long to see, how the mainstream media wants to portray this industry.
Hmm.
And it's not like that. And so right away, you have people being afraid of the stigma. And so because of that, they almost naturally want to protect themselves. So you almost like shell up like a turtle and you don't go out there and go find the resource that you need. When in fact, being in this industry, you get hit with everything. I mean, you got to really think about, what industry in the world is has so many different legal issues that affect it. We're talking criminal law, we're talking contract law, we're
Hmm.
talking international law, we're talking litigation, we're talking dispute resolution, intellectual property.
Right.
Being an adult entertainment lawyer is not the sort of law that you can just be a one-track pony, so to speak. You can't just jump in to being an adult entertainment lawyer and only knowing about divorce law. It doesn't work that way. You need to have a bunch of different categories of knowledge all bunched together, because ultimately the adult entertainment business is such a high risk industry and there are so many different rules, regulations, and pitfalls that oftentimes people just, again, they get overwhelmed and they don't show up and get the help. But the message I've always tried to give is I've tried to send the message that, hey, it's not like that. There are adult entertainment lawyers out there. Yes, you've got to do your homework to find them, but they're there, and you should always have representation, because everyone who's entering or in the adult entertainment industry should always remember that they have rights. You know,
Hmm.
mainstream media wants you to feel like a second class citizen, but you're not. Quite the opposite. I'm actually proud of adult entertainers because I find them to be artists. I find them to be people who are proud of the fact that they share their bodies, their minds, their souls with the entire world to see. And I don't believe it's fair that they should ever be in a position where an adult entertainment uh, performer, or someone not a performer, someone who works another area of the industry, they should never be fearful or hesitant to get a lawyer. That's just not right.
Totally. And there's so many things here. I mean, something like a bell is ringing in my head is like trust. It's really hard to find someone you trust with one, basically your business, and two, for some people, as you mentioned, like my family, not all of my family knows that I do adult work, and that's fine. That's my own choice. But like, it's hard to find people also like in terms of like lawyers who are not going to judge you for what it is that you do, and also adult lawyer, like that seems so niche. As I said earlier in the interview too, it's super niche, and it's just like, how do you even find that? Like I didn't even really know those people really existed beforehand.
We are there. There's not there. There's far less of us left, and in my opinion, there's only a small group that actually know what they're doing. I actually think there's some very bad lawyers out there that portray themselves as adult entertainment lawyers, and frankly, they terrify me because they have no idea what they're talking about. Um, Either they are motivated by getting to be around the adult entertainment industry, or
Mhm.
some desire for money, or whatever it is. But ultimately, I was very lucky. I had when I was younger, I had a an attorney in our industry who'd been in our industry for longer than me, Lawrence Walters. And I reached out to Larry. This is the truth. I reached out to Larry, and I told him, I said, Larry, I used to watch Larry give presentations when I was in the industry as a website operator. And I said to Larry, I said, how cool would it be if I get to learn from basically the guy that I consider the greatest ever? And so now Larry and I, after we've worked together for years, we have what's called an of counsel relationship, which is where we've pooled our firm resources together so that Larry and I can provide, you know, so many options to our clients that frankly no one would have access to. So I was fortunate. and
Wow.
and listen, it's one thing I'll tell you that I've learned about lawyering is that you put two lawyers in a room, you're going to end up with three opinions, and that's just a fact of the matter. But lawyers can be very dangerous because some of them really do. They talk out of their asses. They don't know what they're talking about, and they can be very dangerous. And
Mhm.
it's one of the reasons why I've told my clients over the years, and I've begged people in the industry. I said, hey, make sure that you know who you're working with. Okay,
Mhm.
don't go working with some fly by night who just pops up one day and starts showing up at trade shows as, oh, hi, everyone, I'm here. I'm an adult industry lawyer. Really? What experience do you have?
Yeah.
What qualifications do you have? Um, and so we are out there. And I've made it a point to be very active on Twitter, on social media. Um, and I've tried my hardest to, kind of let the world know that I'm out there. And, uh, I've done, I couldn't even tell you how many seminars and presentations now all across the world. I've done presentations in the United States, Canada, Amsterdam, Colombia, Czech Republic. I mean, the list just goes on to all the different countries and places where I've given legal presentations. And a lot of them ask the same thing, like, wow, I didn't know like lawyers like you exist. We are there. And again, you're looking for someone who has the experience, who frankly has the heart, and someone who truly is going to, is interested in promoting free speech and helping you and your platform and not themselves. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a. I'm glad you addressed that too, because I mean, like good cop, bad cop. There's a lot of, and I just feel like the general stereotype is like no one likes lawyers, right? And it's just like,
No,
it's okay. We like you,
no, they
Corey.
don't. But
But
I
I
have,
mean,
one thing about me, I've
mhm.
challenged people and I've said, listen, I said, if look, if I represent someone and someone's on the other side of me, I wouldn't really want to know me either. I'm not a very pleasant person to deal with if I'm suing you or whatever. But ultimately, I'm very proud of the fact that even for people that I've had to sue in this industry, um, ultimately you won't find anyone that'll ever say I don't respect Corey or I think he's personally a dickhead or anything like that, because that's not how I treat it. I don't view the industry as a place to run around and just sue everybody. That's not what the point is. The point is actually to help promote a safe, legally compliant atmosphere so that people can do what they want to do, which is sharing their talent, sharing their content, and guess what? Making money. That's what you guys are here to do. You're here to make money, and you guys want to be able to make money without, oppression from other people in the business, oppression from the United States government, oppression from different state governments. That's what I'm here for.
Definitely. And what I like about you, I mean, like, obviously, because you've had experience like within our industry too, and you've had these decades of experience as well, like on top of that, but also like, again, like your advocacy. I keep seeing your name everywhere, as mentioned earlier. Like you have that rapport with our industry, and like it shows and demonstrates that you're trusted, as opposed to like maybe the other folks that are out there that, as you mentioned, they just kind of show up out of nowhere, and people are like, who are you? Never heard of you before.
They're one day, gone the next. We've had there's been some bad examples over the years of lawyers who just show up one day and say, I'm an adult entertainment lawyer. And it's actually terrifying, because they really are quite dangerous. Um, I think that it's important, though. You know, I've always felt it's important for people to understand. I'm actually very proud of it. People have said before, they use titles. They say, oh, that's the porn lawyer or that's the whatever lawyer. And I said, you can call me whatever the hell you want. I don't, it doesn't matter what you call me. As far as I'm concerned, I'm proud of the fact that I get to represent people who are mainly trying to do what? Exercise their First Amendment rights, exercise their rights to free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Dancers, I mean, when you start talking about dancers, Steph, you start talking about a category of people like how often in the news across the world have topless dancers or all nude dancers just been trashed and decimated by the media or by right-wing politics. I mean, it's disgusting, and it drives me crazy. So I happen to represent literally the most successful bar adult entertainment strip club operator in the state of Michigan, and frankly one of the most well known in the world, who's written a book and has had TV shows made off of him. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done with him, because I can't stand it when I get calls or emails from a performer who says, "Hey, I just tried to go to work and there was a line of protesters,
Mm-hmm.
in front of the door." Most recently, even in Toronto, this was just going on. I think it was last summer, the summer before, and a bunch of my clients had to, petition and picket outside of clubs and government offices.
Yeah.
But so it alarms the hell out of me when I see things like this.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're speaking up about it as well, because like we need more voices like yourself, and we need that the backup, because our voice alone isn't enough, right? So,
I am always happy to be the loudest person in the room if I have to be. I'd rather not. Actually, frankly, I'd rather just sit in the back of the room and just be quiet. But if I have to be the loudest guy in the room, I'm more than happy to do it. I spend a lot of my time. I spend a lot of my time doing charitable work. Also, I'm a very proud board member. I'm one of the original board members of Pineapple Support.
Oh, nice,
Uh,
amazing. Yeah.
so Pineapple Support provides mental health services to anyone in the adult entertainment industry.
Hmm.
It doesn't really matter what facet you're in. But I'm so proud of my work that we've done with that, because we've actually been helping so many people heal, get help they need, deal with psychological things they got going on. I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to prevent suicides. The organization is doing absolutely amazing. So I'm proud to be a board member on Pineapple Support. Um, I've also, I've been on legal committees for virtually every adult entertainment industry organization you can think of, where we do not, I have not received a dime or a penny for my services, and never will. And I didn't ask for it, because that's not what I'm looking for. I think that it's important for, people in this realm, the legal end of adult entertainment, to be making sure that they're also giving back where they can. And so when I find the right, groups, charities to take part in, I usually jump on those pretty aggressively.
I love that. And we don't hear about that enough, too. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that as well. And we will be having someone on from Pineapple Support. Hopefully, I'm still working on that. But I know a lot of people have been wanting for another like therapist type of episode. So stay tuned for those who are listening. It is coming.
He's here. You got one of the original board members here right now.
Half counts. But going back
I'd be more than
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not a licensed therapist, but I'd be more than happy if you want Leah, because that's who everybody always wants. Everybody wants Leah. I'd be more than happy to help you get Leah on the show. It would be my pleasure.
I'm going to be speaking to you about that after this.
There's no problem at all. We can dial Leah and tell her that we need her. It's no problem at all.
But back to you, because we have so much to cover today. I know that we were talking about like in our notes earlier as well. You mentioned a point here, like why do sex workers not operate as conventional business operation? And the question after that is, should they? And I'm curious to kind of get into this part of the conversation as well.
Amazing question, and I'm so happy that you're asking that. And I knew you would, because your show is so damn inquisitive and good that I figured you'd pick up on that one. When you're talking about adult entertainers, they too often, again, because of media stereotypes, because of their own lack of education, lack of information. And I'm not saying they're not, not educated. Like, I'm not calling people like, elementary school dropouts, but because there's just not enough education out there for them to have, that they don't realize that adult entertainment, yes, it's amazing that you're sharing your art, sharing your mind, your soul, your body with the world, because that's what you want to do. But it is a business.
Yes.
Your most valuable asset is you.
Correct.
And people just, they don't, I don't know what it is. And I've been trying for, 15 years to, if I had a hammer, I'd be banging this into people's heads, because I'm like, please, 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 will you all listen to me when I tell you that your product is a business. Your product is you. It doesn't matter that you're not selling batteries, okay? You're not out there like Duracell or Energizer, and that's your business. You're in the battery business. It doesn't matter. Steph, in your example, using you're in the Steph business. That's what your business is. What is your product? Your product is Steph. Whether that's your podcast, whether that's your performances, whatever it is, you have to view it as a business. And in order to do that, there's different things you can do to protect yourself, like forming a legal entity and making sure that all of the assets you're creating are going into that legal entity. Combined with that, one of the other things you have to think about is protecting yourself, because look, there's always times in every business. Again, I'm going back to the battery example. I don't know why I'm thinking about batteries right now. But I have no idea. But battery manufacturers like Duracell and Energizer, they get sued all the time. But they're in a position where they have everything set up because they know they're going to get sued, and they know they're going to have legal problems because they're a business. As an adult entertainer, you need to be thinking the same way. You have to be thinking that, yes, there is a possibility that trouble could find my way. Will it? Look, we certainly hope not. But if it does, you want to be in a position where you've done everything you can do to protect yourself. And it isn't that complicated. I'll just talk to, about the U.S. right now. In the United States, it isn't that complicated to form a limited liability company, to make sure that you're doing business under that limited liability company and protecting your assets under that limited liability company. And at the same time, it's completely possible to do so with hiding your identity. Mm-hmm. Look, we know that adult entertainers are constantly have to watch over their back from potential issues with customers, with vendors, with people that just, quite frankly, are trying to make a mess because they don't particularly agree with what you do. And there's reasons why your identity and your safety and security is precious. And I have helped over the years, I couldn't even tell you how many, it's in the hundreds by now, hundreds of individuals set up entities without ever having to disclose their information, so that someone just can't jump online and find out who's behind that company. That's one of the most common mistakes I see people making.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's important to protect yourself, protect your branding, protecting who you are, because you are the business at the end of the day. And I feel like a lot of people, and maybe this is just my observation with the people I might be surrounded with at work, say for this example, like not treating it as work,
Mhm.
treating it as just like, oh, this is just something I do on the side,
No,
you know?
there's I hear that all the time. And listen, I get it. People want to dab they want to kind of just like, when you like, when you're like a child, right? And you first go to like a pond and you've never had your foot in like a big, large body of water before. And you kind of just tap your foot in, and you're just like, I don't know if I want to go in, I'll just kind of put my foot in. I see that in adult entertainment where you have people who are in mainstream jobs and they're doing stuff. It's, especially in the OnlyFans era. In the OnlyFans era, you see so many people who are just like, well, I'm kind of like a dentist during the day, but at night it'd be really cool if I can just kind of put my foot in the water and just give it a little taste. No, if you're going to get into the water or get into the pond, so with the analogy I'm giving here, you're in, and you've got to understand that you're in, and another thing about being in, once you're in, you're never getting out. And I've tried to express this to people over the years, and especially the internet is a unforgiving place.
Yes.
There is no coming back, Steph.
Mm-hmm.
You go online, you're online forever. I've tried to explain this. The greatest minds ever have tried to eliminate all presences of something that goes online, and they fail over and over again because you can't stop human beings from sharing something that they believe is, share worthy, so to speak. And so there's so many people that make, before you jump into the adult entertainment industry, you need to have that conversation with a professional to understand that, okay, do you understand what you're getting into? Do you understand that once you get in, there is the potential here that you're in it forever? You can't go back. You can't erase your history as much as you'd love to. Is there anyone in your life that you could potentially lose because of this venture? Meaning, do you have a spouse, a parent, someone that's so important to you that you absolutely couldn't live without them? Have you thought about the implications on those relationships, not after you jump into the industry, but before you get into the industry? And this is one of the reasons why I've encouraged people over the years. It's like, I would much prefer that people come to me before they dive in than
Mm-hmm.
after, so that we can have a lot of these conversations. I'm not telling, everyone out there right now that it's not worth it. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm simply saying, make sure though you have all the information and you know everything that could possibly happen before you take that dive in.
Yes. Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
and that's where I say there's a lack of information and education sharing.
For sure. Yeah. And that's like another reason why I make the show too, because I know I understand like a lot of people listen to the show as a resource before they start to dive in and before they like, kind of really get their feet wet. But sometimes, sometimes they're still like, oh, well, we'll just see how it goes. But, that's actually a good thing. I should probably tell people about that too. Consult with the lawyer before you kind of go in fully deep. So, another question, and this is just like something I thought of right now, that's just kind of like a side tangent. Talking about the internet and the internet being forever, I was curious too, with your experience in terms of like, or if you've had any, I don't even know if you've had experience in trying to get content removed from the internet, like DMCA
Yep.
and whatnot.
Sure, and there are mechanisms. I've had people come to me that are active performers that their content has been stolen by pirates and it's all over the internet, and they want assistance with getting that content taken down. We've done that. I've also had clients come to me who have decided that they're at a different point in their life now. Maybe they are in a new relationship and they're trying to erase their past and are trying to get content taken down, or they're trying to acquire rights to it. I've represented people like that also. I've also represented people on the other side of the equation. I've represented companies that, have received letters from performers saying, hey, I've changed my mind. I don't want to be online anymore. I don't want this content out there anymore. So I've been involved in this from both ends. And,
Mm.
it's very much a case by case situation. I can't tell you stuff that there's a, you know, one common ending to all of those stories. It's actually, it's very different how all the situations ultimately conclude. And it's very dependent on, the specific
Of
facts.
course, of course. I know a lot of people are usually curious about that too. Like, what do I do? How do I get this removed, et cetera, et cetera. But it's tricky. I'll have to send people your way for that. Uh,
Listen, I love everybody in this industry, and I'm always happy to help where I can.
Thank you. I mean, like going along those lines too, and now we're kind of getting more so like with like governmental like laws and politics and how like say like human trafficking is always being a topic of conversation in a lot of people's campaigns. Um, this is tricky. This is problematic. This is overtly bad, I want to say, for sex workers in general. But what are your thoughts on that? Is this something that's going to continue happening, or how do you see it?
Amazing question. And look, the fact is that right now we are seeing a lot of right wing slash religious groups that are doing everything they humanly can to try to make, you know, adult entertainment as difficult as possible to put out there. And one of the things that politicians are really, really good at, it's called the spin.
Okay.
The spin is when a politician says one thing, but then in the law that they put forth means something completely different. For example, FOSTA SESTA has been crippling on the sex worker industry, escort industry, obviously in the United States and throughout the world. Um, and FOSTA SESTA, in my opinion, is unconstitutional. And I'm very proud of the fact that the Woodhill Freedom Foundation continues to fight that challenge in court in DC. And I hope that ultimately we're going to get rid of that law. But here's what the slick politicians do, and this is where I call it the spin. The politicians write a law that they call it the Save the Children from Imminent Harm Act.
Yes, always.
Okay. And then they fill it up with all sorts of anti-free speech language and verbiage and definitions of adult content and definitions of pornography and sex acts and what have you that have nothing to do with protecting children. But here's where the spin, as I call it, here's how they get away with it. They get away with it because if you go up to a politician, if you're a journalist and you stick this bill in their face and you say, Senator, you're telling us that you don't support the protection of children? And they look up and they say, wait, what are you talking about? And quickly they're signing off on the bill because they don't want to be the politician that is getting thrown into the spotlight supposedly because they're not protecting children, when in reality you have a law that has nothing to do with protecting children and is just filled with right-wing ideology, religious ideology, suppression of speech ideology.
Right.
That's what FOSTA SESTA was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, FOSTA SESTA. If you actually took, and I've challenged senators on this before. I've done it on social media, and I've said, hey, if any of you want to sit down and have a public or private conversation with me, the first question I would ask is, explain to me what FOSTA SESTA is.
Mm-hmm.
Other than just reading the title of the statute. Okay? And they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know what it means. They don't know how it's implicated because, truthfully, some assistant and lobbyist shoved it in their faces and they don't have any clue what it really did.
Right.
They wanted to run around, for example, with FOSTA SESTA, and they wanted to claim that stopping online escort agencies was a necessity. But when they did this, did they bother going and talking to people in the actual sex industry? Did they go and talk to sex workers? No, because the fact is, Steph, the fact is that these online platforms served a dual purpose. One, obviously, it created commerce and it allowed for sex workers to engage with potential customers. But the second thing that it did is it provided a level of security, because
Mhm.
ultimately there was a vetting process. There was a process where a person would be able to learn about another person through submission of ID, vetting processes, reference checks,
Yes.
etc. And if you talk to law enforcement, I'm not talking about the law enforcement that wears suits up on Capitol Hill. I'm talking about the detectives, the sergeants that are in uniforms working cases.
Mhm.
They will tell you that FOSTA SESTA didn't help them. It hurt them,
Mm.
because when they removed all these online platforms were always cooperating with law enforcement. If someone was legitimately in danger, which, listen, I am not suggesting that there has never been an instance where a platform was abused for the purposes of nefarious purposes. I'm not saying that. But the platform was able to share information with law enforcement to help get someone out of peril,
Right.
to help. But then when you take it away, do you think that sex workers are just going to stop working? That they're going to say, okay, well, you know what, the website shut down, so I'm not going to escort anymore. I'm not going to feed my family anymore. I'm going to go to McDonald's and I'm going to make $9 an hour flipping burgers. No,
Mhm.
of course
No.
not. They continue to do what they're going to do, but now, because the online platform has been removed from the equation, where do they go back to? Pimps, organized crime, magazines, unsafe ventures, the streets. It is a ridiculous proposition to suggest that the removal of online platforms in any way made things safer. It is an absurdity.
Yes.
And to top it all off, before I get off my soapbox here, which is getting higher and higher by the second, one more point on this that is silly is that, they try the politicians behind it say, well, we needed this law because we needed to be able to prosecute people. That is absolute bullshit. There were plenty of laws on the books that were already there that they could utilize. Case in point, Backpage. When Backpage was shut down and prosecuted wrongfully, by the way, in my opinion, but that's besides the point. They didn't use FOSTA SESTA. Why? Because FOSTA SESTA didn't exist at the time. They had the necessary laws on the books to be able to prosecute. So to suggest that FOSTA SESTA was needed because there was some sort of law missing or something like that, absurd.
Yeah.
It is an absurd proposition. And again, it's the spin that I was telling you about earlier.
Right.
It's the political spin.
Oh gosh, and that's so frustrating too because like it's still crippling sex workers today, and then as we all know, it just continues to further push this work underground, and of course, putting sex workers at high risk for assault, for being pimped, being trafficked, and those kind of senses. So it's just a loop, a cylindrical loop that unfortunately I don't know where the end of that is going to be, but I'm really glad that you're able to put your 2 cents on that and kind of let the audience
You,
know about this.
could you imagine a world, Steph, where lawmakers actually invited sex workers to DC and they actually sat in a boardroom with sex workers and actually listened to them instead of just making their own assumptions about what, the mainstream media wants to portray the adult entertainment. I always give this example that mainstream media wants to like portray the adult industry as like a dirty mattress in the middle of a warehouse somewhere with used syringes sticking out of
Oh my
every appendage of
gosh.
the person's body. But the fact is that if anyone actually takes the time to get to know a professional adult entertainment company or studio or what have you, you'll actually find that their locations are cleaner than the floors at most dental offices.
Correct.
And it's and I know, nobody wants to talk about that,
Yeah.
but it's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, it's a fact, and it's a disturbing fact that we still live in this world where sex workers are continuously having to battle image that simply isn't reality.
Yeah, and it's so old. I mean, it's so tiresome seeing the same old narrative constantly being portrayed again and again. And all we want is just a seat at the table, just to actually consult with us, actually talk with us to see how our work is being operated. Check in with us. Is that so much to ask for?
And exactly, and there, there are some, you know, call them more mainstream media sources that historically haven't really covered as much in the adult entertainment. Vice News, Rolling Stone, for example, that are now covering us a lot more, and I'm very happy that they are, because instead of giving the perspective of a one directional journalist, they're giving you actual journalistic writing about, here's the people on the ground. Here's the performers telling you what they think of this situation, not just what, some politician who has absolutely no idea where even they could find uh, an adult content studio. Let alone ask them to see what one looks like.
Right.
And look, I'm not suggesting, Steph, that there's not, bad players out there. Every industry in this world has bad players. The fact is that as long as there's money in this world and there's people that are completely motivated by greed, unfortunately, you are going to find that every industry has unethical, immoral people. That is a fact of life. Do I wish it didn't exist? Of course, but I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't. But the gross majority of the adult entertainment industry are made up of fantastic entrepreneurs who are fantastic people. And of course, when they get that story about the one guy or the one company
Oh my gosh.
did something wrong, I mean, you would think that that company invented the nuclear bomb. I mean, the and I'm not saying to you that what some of these people did isn't horrifically bad, because quite frankly it is. There is no place in this industry for people that abuse other human beings.
Yes.
Period. Period. End of story. There's no excuse. You're not wanted in this industry. Frankly, you don't belong. You don't belong with the rest of us in public. You do deserve to go to a cell.
Yeah.
If you are going to engage in abuse of human beings, engage in unlawful practices, then you know what? You're going to get what you deserve. But to take a small instance that might happen once every, you know, 10, 15 years in an industry, whereas we could look at Wall Street, where you've got people getting, destroyed and lives ruined every single day,
Yes.
but you don't see nearly the atomic bomb story that they put up when, someone in the industry gets in trouble for something. And again, I am not suggesting that there aren't bad players out there that need to be punished. Quite the contrary. I think they are out there.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm suggesting, though, is that the treatment that the entire industry gets every time one person may do something stupid or wrong or unlawful or immoral, to attribute that to an entire industry is wrong.
Oh, absolutely. And they love to blow shit up all the time, and blow things out of proportion, or just take, or like misquote someone and then take that and like spew that out of context. It's really frustrating. And unfortunately, a lot of the world hates sex workers. And again, this is why the stereotype just keeps continually being perpetuated for so long, which is frustrating.
And it's interesting because you know what I've learned about those people that hate sex workers so much, Steph? They are the most sexually repressed freaks out there.
Yes.
They are the ones with some of the most pent up sexual frustrations and lack of understanding of sex that I've ever come across in my life. So it's just it's interesting because I'm like, all right, well, I mean, it's not exactly 1760 anymore, but in your world it seems to be.
There's definitely truth in that.
Which,
Just before we head into questions, Corey, I know I really am interested in speaking about this next little bit, in terms of like accessibility for legal resources for sex workers. You started adult.law, and I'm curious.
yes.
Tell the audience first of all what adult.law is, and tell us more about this amazing subscription service that you have.
Adult.law was my COVID baby. Everybody had,
Oh.
they either had real COVID babies or they had business COVID babies. I had a business COVID baby. During COVID, especially the adult entertainment industry went through a massive transition, and we already had the fan sites like OnlyFans and Loyal Fans, and all the many vids and all the various different platforms. But what happened during COVID, when people really couldn't go out and they still needed to make a living, is they really realized it's like, shit, I can really do everything from my own living room without having to leave. At that point, I
Mhm.
realized, because I started getting a lot of inquiries online from performers who are like, listen, I just started doing this. I can't afford to pay a big retainer. A lot of performers are used to lawyers saying, well, I need a $10,000 retainer, what have you. They couldn't afford it.
Mhm.
So what I came up with was a platform built for performers, and that's where adult.law came from. Adult.law is a subscription-based platform where for as little as 99 bucks, you
Wow.
can get yourself access to all sorts of legal resources, and it only goes up from there. You can get reduced pricing, and you can get individual time with me, specific projects worked on, and so forth. And so I built adult.law because, frankly, performers said, hey, we need something that's a little bit more affordable, that's a little bit more simpler. And we've loaded it up with we
Yeah.
have dozens and dozens and dozens of educational videos and interviews and special guests and you name it, covering every topic you can imagine. In fact, I'll probably at some point, Steph, going to ask you to be a guest on one of our episodes because, frankly, you're so damn popular. Um, but it was created as a resource, an affordable resource for performers.
I love that because and I didn't know it came out of COVID. That's so smart, and like it's really great to have that accessibility because we were just talking about like lack of resources in the industry, and of course when you're talking about legal fees and all the lawyer fees that come with consulting with a lawyer, it can get really pricey, and that can be a deterrent for lots of people. Where it's okay, I need to get this kind of information, but it's very expensive. Okay, then I'll just Google it or ask my friends, and that can be really really dangerous. So it's really awesome that you're able to come up with. Kind of like a middle ground and meet us halfway in between to provide such resources for the adult community. So really really cool, and I'm happy to share that. Link is going to be in the link below if you haven't already checked the show notes for people that are listening. But there are a couple questions that did come in from the audience, Corey, that I feel it is time for us to kind of dive into. So
Let's do it.
let's just try. Let's just see how it is. So a lot of them are very specific, so we'll see how how much we can answer. So this
Because that I'll tell you.
we'll have to like maybe refer these people over to you after the show because they're very specific.
Do you ever watch Family Feud?
I have not. I'm sorry.
Really? You've never watched Family Feud on TV, like with Steve Harvey and the dude that when
Oh
people
yeah, yeah,
pan
that's right. Yes. No, I am.
Family
Yes,
Feud.
correct.
So I'll put up a big X every time it's a question that's like, so then
And I'll add that sound effect in as well, unless you want to do it yourself. Okay.
perfect.
So this question came from Instagram, and this person is a dancer that is Canadian and has
Mm-hmm.
gotten banned
Mm.
basically from the US. So basically the question is that I've summarized is do you have any insight on sex worker related bans from Canada into the US and if there's a possibility to overturn that?
I work with. By the way, to this person, one little interesting fact about me is I'm actually was born in Montreal. I'm Canadian myself.
What?
A lot of people didn't know that.
Did not know.
Um, there is a lot of different scenarios that can create a reason why you might have problems getting into the U.S. But I actually have found a amazing immigration lawyer that I work with. He's Michigan based also, but he represents clients all across the world. There is always potentially an option, and until you speak with an immigration expert, don't assume that all your avenues are closed. There may be a way. There are holes in immigration law more than any other area of the law in the world. Some of this stuff I'm like stunned by when I learn about it.
Oh,
So
great.
the person asking the question, I would say to you that what you really need is you need an immigration law specialist. If you need that person's name, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm on Instagram. I'm at my adult. Oh, well, actually, no. On Twitter, I'm at my adult attorney. On Instagram, I don't know what I am, but I'm something. Or you can reach out to Steph, and she can tell you how to get a hold of me. But I'd be more than happy to introduce you to an immigration lawyer that I think can answer your questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll connect you too. And your Instagram handle is Corey Silverstein on Instagram.
News to me. You learn something new every day.
Next one is this one came from Twitter. Buying back your performer name as a website domain name. How do you go about protecting yourself? Are there specific parts of your performer name that you need to keep and protect?
Well, with performer names, the first piece of advice I always give you is right from the start, consult with an intellectual property lawyer who can do some digging into the name you want to use, because we can do searches on the United States Trademark Office's website to see whether or not anyone else is using that name. This is a big thing that people, they do. They see a name in a movie and they're like, oh, I'm going to be, Sandry Bull Butts or, something, whatever they come up with. And I see stuff like this all the time, but it all starts with right from the start. You want to take a look at your name, and right away, what you want to do is you want to register every possible main domain and social media handle related to that. So, for example, if your performer name is going to be Hottie Steph, we're just going to go with that.
Very original.
What you should be Yeah, I know, brilliant. You should be going online and you should be buying the hottiesteph.com, .net, .org, all the big ones. If that name's not available, choose a different name. You guys hear me loud and clear? Choose a different name. If you find out someone else is already using it, choose a different name. I don't care if your friend's uncle's lawyer tells you, well, that person doesn't have a trademark, so you can go ahead and use it too, or what have you. No. Be smart about this. Pick a stage name that isn't already taken. There are plenty of good names. You don't have to be, like, how many adult entertainers are there that their first name is something and their last name is Blue?
Mm-hmm.
Something Blue.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Betty Blue, Vicky Blue, Angel Blue, Sarah Blue. It's like, okay, can we, let's put some thought into it, and at the same time do a little bit of legal search into it. Again, if you go online and that name is already taken, don't use that name. Use a different name.
Yeah.
Do some homework before you pick your name. And I'm not saying don't just pick a name because it's cool.
Right.
Okay. Again, remember we talked about earlier, Steph, this is a business. Your name, your brand is one of the most valuable parts of your business.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Treat it as such, peoples. Treat it as such. Now, the last question, again, is very specific. I might have to connect you to on Twitter, but this one came from Twitter. It's a DM. So, generally speaking, in terms of like how I was summarizing this, basically this person is in full service work. They were working for an agency, and now this agency is trying to persuade new and current full service sex workers to sign a contract with a non-compete clause, stating that any new business opportunities presented to the contractor, which is them, belongs to the employer, and they're wondering if that is legal.
Well, that's gonna greatly depend on where the person is located and what choice of law provision is in the contract. In certain places, such as California, for example, that would be completely unenforceable. So it's actually going to change substantially from state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction. However, for anyone that is being presented with a contract like that, I would encourage you not to sign it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't sign it, because literally that sounds to me like a slavery contract. The fact that you apparently, if you have sex with someone, you can't have sex with that person again because your sexual relationship with that person is owned by the agency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Think about this, folks, for a second. Think about. I mean, think about what I'm saying here. If hell, what if you fell in love with that customer? I'm not saying that's a good idea, but what if you wanted to have a relationship? What, you're going to have to go to the agency and say, hey, guess what? I fell in love, but I need your permission, agency, because I want to marry this person. it is so absurd.
Yeah.
It is so absurd. And the person that reached out to you, good for you for your bravery to ask the question. But you definitely should. You need to talk to a lawyer before you sign anything.
Absolutely. And luckily, FYI, that person did not sign the contract and left that agency. So that is great.
There you go.
There you go. It's like red flags all around for sure.
I wouldn't sign it if I was a sex worker. So.
Yeah, me too. You got to be careful with those contracts. Contact Corey if you want to if you want to look over some legal terms. If you want any kind of like reviewing for contracts, I know like a lot of contracts can be really overwhelming for people that are coming into the industry, and you got to kind of like read everything with like a fine tooth comb. So yeah,
You know what people always say when some company throws a contract in front of you and they say, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's just legalese." Well, if it's just legalese, then why is it in the contract?
right. Got to question it.
It obviously means something, and there's a reason the language is there. Don't short yourselves, people. If there's a contract, you always have the right to have it reviewed by an attorney, to discuss it with an attorney, and also remember, until you sign it, until both parties sign, the only thing you got is a negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to negotiate on yourselves. Why is it that performers and sex workers seem to think that they can't negotiate? You guys can negotiate, and if
Absolutely.
the party wanted to pay, if you can't agree to terms, and you don't agree to terms.
Exactly.
There's no necessity that the two parties agree to terms when they're negotiating.
Mm-hmm. Be smart about it, peoples. But with that being said, we're just going to wrap up here. But before I let you go, Corey, where can we all find you?
So you can find me, quite honestly, you can just open up a window, scream my name, kind of like Superman, but that won't work. You can do it, but it won't work. I won't hear you and I won't show up. But if you want to find me, so you can obviously find me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram apparently as Corey Silverstein. Twitter is at my adult attorney. My main website is myadultattorney.com. I don't think there's any way you guys can forget it because it's literally my adult attorney. Think about that. I'm your adult attorney, so my adult attorney. You can reach out to me by email. I have contact forms across all of my websites. You can Google my name, and I'm sure you'll be able to connect to me. You can email me. My office phone number is literally posted everywhere, including probably the side of every bus station in every major city. So you're more than welcome to call my office anytime you want. You can reach out if you're having a problem getting a hold of me. You can always reach out to Steph and say, "Hey, Steph, that Corey dude, I stuck my head out the window and called his name and he didn't show up." She knows how to get a hold of me. So, but myadultattorney.com is my website. It's always going to be your best way to reach out to me. But don't ever hesitate to reach out on Instagram, Twitter, so long as I have an Instagram account, because you never know when they're going to ban me.
That's true.
Hey. So, you never know. But yeah, those are your best ways to get home. And of course, if you're a performer and you're interested in checking out our videos and signing up for adult.law, it's literally $99 for legal services. Check it out. It's really simple. It's adult.law, not .com. Some people will be like, "I can't find your site because I went to adultlaw.com." It's not .com. It's adult.law.
Perfect. All of those links and all the ways you can contact Corey is all going to be in the show notes below if you haven't checked that out already. Be sure to reach out to him. Very accessible, very nice person. And if you wanted like a more formal introduction, I can go ahead and introduce you to as well.
I'm a nice guy.
Or maybe you're an asshole. You told me to call you asshole earlier, so
I thought I was a nice guy.
you're okay.
Oh, okay. Is this like Dom sub thing going on here where it's like, I desperately reach for a compliment and you reach back by like smacking me in the face? Is that what this is?
It could. We could turn it into that if you want to. But you have to pay me though.
No.
Pay tribute.
No.
We're not going to go there.
I'm fragile. I'm good.
For everyone else listening, if you're still here, it is Stripped by Sia across all podcast platforms, as well as Stripped by Sia on Twitter, Stripped by Sia on Instagram. Where else am I? Strippedbysia.com if you're interested in checking out all the episodes there that way as well. Or if you want to be a guest, that's a way to contact me that way. Patreon.com/strippedbysia. Consider becoming a patron to help support the show. And also don't forget to Like, share, comment, subscribe. Maybe write a nice review on Apple, rate 5 stars over there, Spotify, wherever you do. That just helps with accessibility overall in terms of people finding the show. But with that being said, it's going to be new episodes every single Sunday. So be sure to check it out and stay tuned for another great episode next Sunday. Thank you so much, Corey. It's great having you on the show today.
Pleasure's all mine, and it like I said, it's an honor for me to be here. Keep up the amazing work you're doing, Steph, because you're sharing the message, and I love that. I think that is so incredible and so important. So it's my privilege, and I'd be happy to come on anytime you need me.
Thank you so much. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia, music by Ted D, graphic design by Maria Bellandarama, and photography by Ian Dabrin.